Sweden has just written me that the Swedish media have published an interview with a Swedish woman who lives there, who says many people in central London are now experiencing high levels of panic, not simply because of the attack, but because the authorities have stopped the London subway and closed all the bridges out of central London, making it impossible for residents to leave and seek refuge in a safer place. That most of those living in central London would like to flee but can't because of the authorities sealing off the exits. Now, you can tell me from your sources whether that's true or not. It's a bit disconcerting, as though it's a deliberate effort to elevate tension and anxiety in central London.
Listen, I don't doubt it. We've been on air now about an hour and 15 minutes, Jim. Let me just get rid of that bit of noise coming in there. We've been on air about an hour and 15 minutes. I'm not working with an engineer in the studio or somebody who can keep up to date with what's coming out, because this is still very much ongoing. The Metropolitan Police made a statement at 6 o'clock. They said a guy drove a car onto Westminster Bridge, mowed into people, injured people quite seriously. He then stabbed a police officer with a knife. Pictures have been put out by various media outlets here in the UK. It's just all bizarre, Jim. And as I speak with you now, some of the major newspapers on their websites are still claiming that Abu Izzadeen, the man who was called for suicide bombs...
Richie, are we there? Are you there? I can't hear you. I can't hear your voice, Richie.
I'm getting you loud and clear, Jim. I'm getting you loud and clear. We might just disconnect with Jim and reconnect. He's not hearing us there, so we'll do that. But I was just going to mention to Jim, just while we get him back there, that while these news agencies are saying it is this guy, apparently Channel 4 News... Jim, I hope we're back in the room.
Right, we got cut off when you were talking about the leading newspapers.
Yeah, the leading newspapers are saying now that Abu Izzadeen is the guy shot dead by the police, and it's him. Yet Channel 4 News, it would appear, are now saying that it might not be him because he might be actually in prison. This is utterly bizarre, Jim. I don't know what else to say.
It is bizarre, Richie, and your interpretation that it was allowed to happen seems to be receiving further and further confirmation.
What did they say? You see, one of the things our listeners were tweeting us earlier on, they were saying one of the disturbing things about these types of attacks are they're very risky attacks, risky for the jihadist who is carrying them out. They are high risk and potentially very low reward attacks, Jim. In terms of, some of the attacks we've seen only a few weeks ago, a guy was supposedly, he ran up to the Louvre Museum in Paris with a machete, a radical Islamist, a supporter of ISIS. And he ran up to soldiers with a machete, screaming his bloody lungs out, and got shot to death. And those are not the actions, Jim, of trained, of capable, of serious terrorists. Do you understand where I'm coming from? And even taking a car onto Westminster Bridge today, it's very odd to me that a serious terrorist who wants to maim control to just allow whom wants to do something, just basically pave the way for him, clear the road and let him do it. Do you think that's coming in now as opposed to the hoaxes like Boston? What do you think, Jim?
I think that's a very reasonable interpretation, Richie. And we've had actually a congresswoman, Tulsi Gabbard, introduced the Stop Arming Terrorists Act as a way of reducing the migrant by stopping to give the weapons of war to the terrorists who are causing all the problems. I think what you're saying is very reasonable because people are wising up. They're getting the idea like attacks. They're having to actually kill people to make them more, whereas in the past, they actually used mannequins in the road. They used mannequins in the road. No one died in that truck attack that was supposed to have taken out 84. No one died at all. They used mannequins. I put a photograph of one on the back of the from Orlando to Dallas and beyond. It was so stunning that they were using these dummies, literal dummies, physical dummies.
And eventually, of course, you have a huge problem with that in the information age, in the Twitter and Facebook age. It's so much more difficult to get away with that. Of course, we're only a couple of days away from the alleged attack at the airport in Paris, Orly Airport, where Zaid Ben Belgacem, again, allegedly an ISIS sympathizer, attempted to disarm a soldier and was shot to death. And in the toxicology report, Jim, they said they found drugs and alcohol in his blood. I mean, who's writing this stuff? If the guy is a serious sympathizer with the Wahhabi form of Islam and ISIS, he's not going to be drinking alcohol and taking drugs. And what that looked like to me on Saturday was a guy who was under some sort of mind control. What do you think?
Well, that was also true, of course, of the alleged terrorists involved, according to the government, in 9/11. They were eating pork, they were drinking booze, they were cavorting with prostitutes. One was even living with one. That's very non-Islamic behavior, and it's ridiculous to think that these would be religious fanatics who'd give their lives for the sake of Allah. I mean, just ridiculous beyond belief.
And the payoff for the authorities, in inverted commas, for the elite, the payoff is twofold. It's, as you said earlier on, tension in communities. People turning on one another in communities. If we're turning on one another, if we're suspicious of Asian men and women in our communities, the majority of whom just want to have an easy life like the rest of us. Of course, every community has bad apples. But so we're turning on one another. We're not focusing on them, Jim. We're not focusing on those who destroy the Middle East, those who fund and arm jihadists like Al-Qaeda and ISIS. But of course, the second part of the payoff is we are terrified all the time, and when we're terrified, we acquiesce when they suggest, oh, we want to monitor your internet habits. We want to shut down your access to certain websites. We want to make hate speech, illegal. We want to come after people. So it's a double payoff, right?
Yeah, absolutely right. And of course, it often happens that these terrorist attacks, the staged ones, are to offset news about other developments. For example, the news may not have reached you yet, Richie, but Larry Klayman, who is formerly of Judicial Watch, now with Freedom Watch, has revealed that a man named Dennis Montgomery, who was an NSA and CIA contractor, left with 47 hard drives, over 600 million pages of information classified about massive government surveillance on prominent Americans, including the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, other justices, 156 judges, prominent businessmen, including Donald Trump, and even Larry Klayman himself. And they have given this information to the House and to the Senate, and they're not responding to it. They actually are now demanding. Larry Klayman is coming forward to demand that this issue be pursued because there's a massive evidence about the surveillance that's been ongoing from the government. There's another aspect of this, a supercomputer called the Hammer that's been used to survey Americans of all walks of life that's being revealed. This whole business about denying that Trump has been under surveillance is simply absurd when you realize all of us have been under surveillance for all this long period of time. And I often believe they're staging events like this just to distract, to make the media be swamped with the events of, the saying is, if it bleeds, it leads. So they cover up and mask the fact that tremendous revelations are taking place about surveillance, unprecedented surveillance programs here in the United States to distract the attention of the American public.
Unprecedented surveillance on businessmen and politicians in the US. We've seen it here. And yet, a guy, allegedly, if it is Abu Izzadeen, and there's some doubt whether it is or not, but if it was him, a guy calling for the murder of politicians and a guy saying publicly that he wanted to become a suicide bomber and they can't track him. It makes no sense, Jim.
What good is all the surveillance if you can't track the alleged surveillance, the alleged terrorists you're supposed to be conducting the surveillance to track? I mean, it's ridiculous, Richie.
Listen, I want to thank you, mate, for giving us a bit of time today. I know I've caught you on the hop there. I know that this is still very much a fluid. I hate to use that mainstream bullshit speak, but it is still ongoing. I really appreciate you coming on to give us your thoughts.
Richie, you do a great job. Let me throw in one more element that shows these hearings as a complete farce. The Democratic National Committee would not allow the FBI to study its servers when claimed Russia was the culprit. I mean, this is a monstrous charade right here in the USA today, ongoing.
We certainly don't live in democracies, Jim. Listen, always a pleasure, mate. I'll be tweeting out links to where people can find your books. We'll talk again. Thanks for giving us your time at the last minute. Appreciate that.
My pleasure, Richie. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Anytime. The great Jim Fetzer on the line to us there from Madison, Wisconsin. Great to hear from him. Exactly 29 minutes to the top of the air. Frantically trying to put some comment together for you today on foot of and in the light of what happened in London. I'm going to take some more music. When I come back, we'll have some tweets and we'll try and get to the bottom of why some sections of the media are naming Abu Izzadeen as the suspect, whom is dead, we were told earlier on, and why others are saying that he's not, or it isn't him, he's in jail, or Channel 4 News is, and that might not be the case. Channel 4 News might not be saying that. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Let's do it. Let's have some music in the meantime on your Richie Allen Show, in association with DavidIke.com, Fab Radio 2, Alternate Current Radio, and TuneIn Radio. My name is Richie Allen. 28 and a half minutes to the top of the hour. This is Al Jarreau and Moonlighting. Bit of that going on. Bit of moonlighting going on today. Back in a couple of minutes with more info. Al Jarreau. Well, Channel 4 News are indeed reporting, as are journalists working with the BBC. They're reporting that the London attacker Trevor Brooks, also known as Abu Izzadeen, is still in prison. And Andrew Neil from the BBC has tweeted this. Dominic Casciani has tweeted this. The international press has named Abu Izzadeen as the suspect and have said that he was killed by the police today, having driven a car into people and having stabbed a police officer. Now it is emerging that it isn't Abu Izzadeen. Extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary developments, really, when you think of the speed. Well, not the speed, because we're talking several hours after it happened. You wonder how they could get that wrong, so many of them. Named Abu Izzadeen, Trevor Brooks, also known as Abu Izzadeen, as that attacker. It's now been reported that he's in prison. I don't know what else to say about that, really. It's extraordinary. It really is. It's extraordinary. Yvonne tweets, Abu Izzadeen's brother apparently contacted Channel 4 to say it isn't him. He said he's in jail, and that was according to Jon Snow a short time ago. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Tiger tweets, now is the time to keep an eye on what they are trying to slip in under the radar. It's time to be vigilant, tweets Tiger. Keep those tweets coming in at Richie Allen Show. Email richie@richieallen.co.uk. Daniel tweets, no matter how much they increase surveillance and security, whenever these events happen, it's never enough for them. You see, I've had an email, I've not had an email, I've had a message on Facebook from Tabitha. Now, I can't reply because I'm banned from Facebook, but Tabitha says, Richie, is the militarisation of the police. There is a fundamental difference between the policing in UK and France. Constitutionally, there is a difference between the policing in UK and France constitutionally. The British policing, based on the Peelian principles of policing by consent, which involves the public working alongside the police. Now, in France, there are 3 existing groups of policing, one of which, the gendarmerie, are a military police force. Their presence required no additional decree. I don't think, says Tabitha. The relationship between the French police and, the relationship between the French people and the police has historically always been them and us. In order for us to have the military on the streets, it would be a completely different scenario, I think, and possibly not one the public would stand for. But Tabitha, I need to do a bit of research on this, because the Metropolitan Police clearly stated today that they have the means at their disposal to work with the military in the aftermath of such an attack like today. He said that. I'm going to play that clip again, not to labour the bloody point. I know I've played it twice already, but this is what he said would happen in the aftermath of the attack, what we could expect in the coming days.
Looking forward, throughout the rest of the day, including when people are commuting home, and indeed over the days that follow, the people of London will see extra police officers armed and unarmed on our streets. This includes our officers working longer hours and extra shifts alongside our colleagues from British Transport Police in the City of London. And of course, as you're aware, we can call on the support of the military should we need to at a future point.
We can call on the support of the military should we need to at a future point. We can do. Aaron tweets, Aaron sends me a message, my friend and colleague Aaron Calland. Apparently they've removed their video from Facebook claiming it was Izzadeen. So some media outlets now backing down from the claim that Abu Izzadeen was the man who carried out the attack and who was shot dead by the police. It's 21 minutes to the top of the hour. How extraordinary. Now, members of Parliament and the British establishment continue to go in front of the cameras to give their reaction to what happened today. The Labour MP Chris Bryant has been talking to the television cameras. He has said nothing will stop British democracy.
We're just constantly aware that people sometimes put themselves in harm's way to protect us and to protect our way of life. I mean, the British way of life. I hope Parliament will be able to be up and running tomorrow, because we need to be able to show that nothing stops British democracy, nothing gets in the way of British democracy.
No, nothing. The only thing that gets in the way of British democracy is a referendum on the European Union. Right? What a hypocrite Bryant is. If Bryant had his way, there'd be a second referendum on the UK's membership of the European Union tomorrow. What a bullshitter. Nothing will stop British democracy. We don't have democracy here in this country. The vast majority of people in this country were against the invasion of Iraq and the murder of over 1 million Iraqis. They fucking went to war in Iraq anyway. Democracy my arse. The vast majority of British people didn't want the RAF bombing in Syria. We did it anyway. The vast majority of people in this country are against massive corporations not paying taxes. But they're left get away with it anyway. Don't talk to me about democracy. There's no democracy in this country. It's outrageous. Now, Ismail is a ordinary bloke. He witnessed, apparently, what happened at Westminster today. And a short time ago, he spoken with the BBC Newsnight programme. This is Ismail describing what he saw. Listen carefully to this.
There is people landing in the middle of the road.
People being hit.
Just take it as normal and then flying people like a football. But I feel sorry for one of the gentlemen. I don't know what happened to him, but it's not something I would like to witness every day. And then he was a conscience just laying down in the middle of the road.
Did you get a chance to see the gentleman driving the car?
No, because my attention wasn't like that. So I was digesting what's happening exactly. And then suddenly then I realized after 30 seconds, I realized there's no hit and run. This hit and run is only one person, only one person. But taking a group of people, keep going back, then that is crime against humanity.
So when did you first realize something was a problem?
The first one I thought was just normally someone lost his balance. But the second one, I didn't think at all, because I was focusing behind. Third one, the gentleman flying up in front of me and landed in the middle of the road. Then he collected me on what happened to Germany. I don't know what happened after that. The guy squeezed in between the pavement and there is a bus under there in the middle of the road. So he squeezed. I don't know how many people he take after that.
How did it make you feel seeing that?
Sick. To be honest, it's a sick to witness these things. And right now, still my hands keep shaking. And it's not something I would like to witness every day. And I don't know why.
Yeah, I imagine it was sick to witness that. If you see somebody driving a four-wheel drive or any car onto a footpath even, and mowing down pedestrians, I can only imagine. It was disturbing. The BBC are reporting that Tel Aviv City Hall in Israel has lit up in the colours of the Union Jack. Pass me the vomit bucket, please. Speaking of terrorism, so the Israelis have lit up the front of Tel Aviv City Hall in the colours of the Union Jack. I could vomit up what little dinner I had before coming on air. Don't make me sick. Don't make me sick. Tim Farron, another one of the let's have a second referendum brigade. Lib Dem leader, till leader of the Lib Dems, that's a joke in itself, has been saying that the democracy will endure, he's been saying to the BBC. Yes, democracy when you get your own way, of course, but not democracy when you don't. He's another one who would have a referendum tomorrow morning, as I said there. Keep your tweets coming in. Do watch what other people are tweeting me on Twitter by going to twitter.com @RichieAllenShow. Mark tweets, security level is at critical. Next is complete lockdown. The next victims' poor families will be wheeled out shamelessly. That from Mark Morrison on Twitter there. Hi to Natalie as well, to Fluffles, to James Gerard, to Faisal. Loads of people tweeting on this. A lot of you are following this, listening to this programme, but also following the 24-hour news channels
to fluff
on
us, to
your
James
televisions.
Gerrard,
and you're keeping me updated
loads of people tweeting
as
on this.
you do that, so I do appreciate that as well.
Following this,
something I dug out for you, listening to Jim, you know, there's never any better time than when you have something like what happened today. People say to us all the time, you know, we can't imagine our security agencies, we can't imagine our police forces knowing about something that's about to happen and turning a blind eye to it. We can't imagine that. Couldn't happen. People couldn't be so evil. We also couldn't imagine how innocent people could be murdered during a drill and blamed on terrorists. How could that happen? Have a listen to Peter Power talking to ITN News live on the 7th of July 2005, telling the news anchor that while bombs were going off in tube stations in London, there was a drill going on in London that very day, a drill which imagined that exact scenario. You couldn't make it up, but it happened.
Today we were running an exercise for a company, bearing in mind I'm now in the private sector, and we sat everybody down in the city, 1,000 people involved in the whole organisation, but the crisis team, and the most peculiar thing was we based our scenario on the simultaneous attacks on the Underground and mainline station. So we had to suddenly switch an exercise from fictional to real. And one of the first things is, get that bureau number. When you have a list of people missing, tell them. And so it took a long time.
Just to get this right, you were actually working today on an exercise that envisioned virtually this scenario.
Almost precisely. I was up until 2 o'clock this morning because it's our job, my own company, Advisor Consultants. We specialise in helping people to get their crisis management response. How do you jump from slow time thinking to quick time doing? And we chose a scenario with their assistance which is based on a terrorist attack because they're very close to a property occupied by Jewish businessmen. They're in the city, and there are more American banks in the city than there are in the whole of New York. A logical thing to do. And I've still got the...
I was going to say, how extraordinary today must feel for you as it unfolds. You mentioned a few moments ago there our experience with Irish Republican...
Now, any presenter worth his salt would not have moved away from what Peter Power just said. What an extraordinary thing. And then we move on. No, that's the story right there. Yes, we were running a series of drills, imagining the exact same scenario that had unfolded in real life at the same stations. Isn't that amazing? Oh, it is, yeah. Let's move on. Because it's a mad world. It's a mad world. 12 and a half minutes to the top of the hour. This is your Richie Allen Show, broadcasting live on davidike.com, Fab Radio 2, TuneIn Radio, and alternatecurrentradio.com. This is Europe's most listened to independent radio show. Thank you for making it so. This is The Cure and a song called In Between Days. Keep the tweets coming in and the emails as well. Gerald Salente joins the programme tomorrow night. I'm sure Gerald will have plenty to say. And we will be talking GMOs tomorrow in the first hour as well. Tell you more about that in a minute. After this, from The Cure, a song called In Between Days. Back in a minute. The Cure and In Between Days. Number of people are saying, Natalie being one, but others are saying as well, that they are posting about this on Facebook and they're asking questions about it. I've had an email from Paul who says, Richie, I've been posting things about this on Facebook, posting pictures of the knife and asking why is there no blood on the knife. And I've been, my posts have been deleted, says Paul, who says he's in Milton Keynes. How you doing, Paul? Keep posting them, Paul, and you'll be banned. Yeah, I mean, I've seen the picture of the alleged terrorist on the gurney being tended to by the police who shot him, apparently. And to the left, to the bottom left-hand corner of the frame of the picture, there's a knife, and people have zoomed in on the knife, and there's no blood on the knife. Does that prove definitively that the knife wasn't used to stab somebody? It doesn't. Let's be honest about it. It does not prove it definitively. I can't imagine why anybody would clean the knife, but it doesn't prove it definitively. I don't know. I just don't know. It might be cause for suspicion, but I just don't know. I just don't know is the answer to that. So there you go. Look, we're trying to piece it together just as you are. You know, 4 people have died, including a police officer and the alleged attacker today. Just before 3 p.m, a man driving a car drove over Westminster Bridge, drove on the pavement and mowed people down, knocked one woman into the River Thames. How horrifying is that? I can't even imagine it. Unspeakable, that really. And then allegedly attacked a police officer, stabbing him to death before he was shot to death himself. And that's it. The Metropolitan Police gave a statement on this earlier on, and the statement is pretty much what I just said, and it talked about what would happen later on. More police, more vigilance, and if we need the army, we've also got the possibility of doing that. That's where we are. Number of people whom should know better are talking about, well, there goes the religion of peace again, and all that garbage. People who used to say that these terror groups, if you want to call them that, were created by Western intelligence agencies to destabilise the Middle East, to cause chaos, to usurp democratically, well, I won't say democratically, that wouldn't be right, but to usurp sovereign governments and replace those sovereign governments with puppets. A lot of people in the independent media used to say that. Now they just promote the Muslims are crazy killers narrative. And you know who I'm talking about. They've got the intellectual presence. I'm not going to finish that sentence. Not going to say any more about it. I'm tired of these bullshitters. I'm tired of them. I'm tired of the way people are sucked in by them. You know, I'm tired of the way people are sucked in by Trump and all that nonsense. And how they don't see through it for what it is. Again, people whom several years ago would have told you exactly what's going on with Donald Trump now use their programs, and it's not just one, it's many, use their programs to extol the virtues of Donald Trump every night of the week. Tell you what a great, what a great bastion of truth and justice he is. An amazing guy. Amazing. It's all mad, you know. It's all mad. So there you go. Let's just see here now. Let's go. Kevin Barrett might join me for a few minutes. I know I'm supposed to be wrapping the programme up. And when I put the repeat on, it's going to be messy. But this is we're on the fly here. And we might get Kevin on. He's just told me he's just finished a 3,000 kilometre train trip. So there you go. Let me just, I'm tweeting him now. I'm tweeting him as I speak. We could always do something later on. Yeah, we could get him on the programme tomorrow or another day. This is going to run. We'll do that. Right. It's not convenient for Kevin now. I was looking for him earlier on. But we could do something tomorrow. Right, okay. That's pretty much it then. I can't really add any more to what was said already. Keep in touch with davidicke.com/headlines. Keep in touch with every news source that you can. Follow this closely over the next 24, 36 hours. It's not going to be out of the news for a while. Let's get to the bottom of why Abu Izzadeen was named as the terrorist whom was killed by the police, when it's looking like now the man is in jail and it couldn't have been him. Quite extraordinary development, that, really, when you think about it. Trevor Brooks is his real name, named by multiple media sources as the guy shot dead by police. Turns out he's in prison and couldn't have done it. What is going on? Why have the police not yet named the attacker? Now, I'm on air live and I don't have somebody running around the studio gathering information for me. So they might have named him by now. They might very well have named him by now, but I don't know, because I'm like you. I've got BBC, I've got Reuters, I've got the Associated Press, I've got those wires, if you want to call them that, open. But I just can't understand why they haven't named him. Why he hasn't been named now. They must know who he is, but I don't know why they haven't. We're going to leave it right there, you and I. Thank you so much to the heroic Gearóid Ó Chulmán. Sorry that we got cut short. Gearóid is currently minding his son, his wonderful other half. His missus wasn't there, so he was on his own with the baby. We had to cut that short. Michael Shrimpton for coming on short notice. The great Jim Fetzer for coming on very short notice as well. I really appreciate that. And to you for putting up with this haphazardly thrown together program at the very 11th hour. We're going to do something completely different today. But thank you for that. Thank you for putting up with it. So tomorrow, among the guests then will be the Transform